Good morning. It is Sunday, March the 22nd. We're still hunkered down. And I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the crochet along, knit along workshop that's going on, that I'm working on doing. That's going to be interesting. We're going to learn to knit or crochet a top that goes to our measurements. Now, I'm going to tell you, I am using for my crochet, I am using Comfy Cotton in the Spring Meadow color, and this is a size 3 weight, and it has 392 yards in it. I'm a fluffy girl. I am probably going to need somewhere between 3 and 4 of these, maybe more. But when my Walmart had them marked down to $1, there were 6 on the shelf, and I got all 6. That is one reason I cannot tell you exactly how much you need, because yours and yours and your measurements are not going to be the same as my measurements. And since we are creating this from our own measurements, the amount of yarn that you're going to need is going to vary. So if you're a fluffy girl, you might want to have a lot more yarn available. If you're a little tiny girl, you may be able to get by with one of those. Who knows? I cannot. Now, my other yarn that I am using, that I'm going to knit with, is actually a Super Saver that is in the color Blue Suede. Now, this is a discontinued yarn. Jane ordered, I thought, 2 of these, but when it came, there were 12 of them. And I went back and looked at my thing, and yes, I ordered 12. And this is when they were $1.99 a piece, I believe, at either Hirschner's or Mary Maxim. Hirschner's. And so I'd gotten 12 of them, so I know I have plenty. And so, you know, like I said, I cannot tell you exactly how much you're going to need, because it's going to be depending on what size you are. You may need more, you may need less. But here's the other thing. If you have a lot of scraps, you could probably do this in scraps and make it a lot of colors. Have fun with it. Play with it. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about gauge, because you're going to have to make a gauge swatch. And I will tell you that when I made my gauge swatch, there is a rule of thumb. They say that you need to make 4 inches or 5-inch swatch. I don't always follow that, and I'll explain why. Now, this first swatch that I made, I actually made it a larger size, and this was using the eye hook with that Spring Meadow. I was not happy with this gauge because it's kind of loose. So I went down a hook size to a 5, and I like this a little bit better. It's a little closer. And I think I could probably get away with wearing, and you'll notice it's not the same size swatch. We're not talking about Bigfoot. Swatch. And the reason being is because I had a clear idea what it was. They basically tell you that you should use 2 inches counting your stitches. I generally use just 1 inch, and that's just from past experience. I know that's what works for me. The reason they tell you 2 inches is because if you use a 2-inch swatch and you count, you may get 7 stitches to that 2 inches. So divided by 2, it's 3.5. So that if your measurements were, say, 48 inches circumference around your hips and you wanted 2 inches of ease, that would be 50 inches, divided by 2 because we're doing a front and a back. We're not doing it circular or in the round. Then you would need 25 inches for your front. And if you took that 25 inches and you have to divide those 7 inches in 2 because you're only doing 1 inch, then you get 3.5 inches. So if you take that 25 by 3.5 inches, you would get a total of 87.5 inches. How do you cast on half a stitch or crochet half a stitch? So generally you would just have to round up. I generally just use a 1 inch mark because that's what works for me. I've been doing this for quite a few years, so I know 1 inch is a good base to look at. And I'm going to show you, going to add in a film here in a little bit about how I measure that 1 inch. But so you're going to have to round up if you do get an odd number like that. You know, whatever works for you. Now, if you're deciding that you want to do something real fancy in the center, you know, like, I don't know, maybe a little lace stitch up your center, you're going to have to figure out how to do that. So you would have to figure out how many stitches you want on the side of that, on each side, so it would be equal. So then you would have a number for your lace pattern in the center. But I'm not going to go that route. Today I'm just going to do plain half double crochets for my crochet one, and I'm just going to use a plain stockinette stitch for my knit pattern. You'll notice I didn't put any edging down here. I'm not concerned about the edging. We'll get to that later. I just know for the body that I wanted to get what my measurements were here. And I have done enough knitting to know that with a size 8, 5.0 millimeter needle, I'm going to give 4 stitches to the inch. And that's exactly what I got here. I knew it. There may come a time that you get to that point with your crochet and your knitting, but generally it's a good idea to do a swatch each time you are making a garment. And why? Well, I'm going to tell you about something I did one time. Knitting. And it was a full-on huge cowl. Went down to just above my knees. Nice cozy sweater. I didn't do a gauge swatch. Now, it was a different yarn I'd never used before, but it was a 4-weight. So I thought, oh, this is going to be fine. I know I get 4 inches to the stitch. Figured out what I needed. You know, what I thought I needed. I knit that puppy. Did I ever try it on? It was knitted in the round. Did I ever try it on? No. When I finished off, it was humongous. It was at least 10 inches. Too big. All the way around. But you know what? It was a great cozy sweater that I could put on and use during very cold times. And this is one time in Pennsylvania when it was like 0 degrees, -2 degrees. So I wore that thing a lot. But it was way too big. But I could wear other clothes under it. But that was my first time I had ever knit something different, with a different type yarn, even though it was a size 4, like, you know, all the other yarns I had used. I assumed it was the same size. Oh no, it was a little fluffier. So that's why it came out too big. So gauge is important, and I'm going to show you how I measure my gauge here. I wanted to show you how I measure using double pointed needles and a regular ruler, you know, for stitches. And what you'll see here is I try to place it right here where an actual stitch would start for crochet. So I have 1, 2, 3 stitches to this inch. Lots of times it may fall in the center of a stitch, and what you want to remember when you put it in the center of a stitch is that's really only half a stitch. So if you made that 4, you can imagine how big your item would be if you multiplied that by 30. You'd have at least probably 15 inches too much. Yeah, so you just want to count the stitches that are in between those. And with this one, using an eye hook and the Cozy Comfort or Comfy Cotton, whatever it is, I only got 3 stitches to an inch. Now I changed that on my next one, which I went down to an eye hook, and that eye hook actually brought it to 4 stitches per inch. Can you see where that's 1, 2, 3, 4? So that changed my gauge. So now, and I decided to go with the H because I get it a little closer, smaller, tighter weave. So that's what I wanted, and that's what you have to do. So I hope that helps you with some of the gauge on crochet stitches. And with my knitting, I do the same thing. I put it in the center of stitches, count the stitches in between, and this one I got 4 stitches in between, and I know pretty much that's what I get when I use a size 8. I've been knitting long enough to know that's the gauge that I'm going to get. However, it's still important to do a gauge swatch to make sure, but yeah, same thing. Pretty much you're going to do that with the same items. You know, if I went over, I'd be in the middle of a stitch, which would give me 5, and that would be way too loosey-goosey. So, especially when you add up all those stitches by however many inches you are, it can add quite a bit. So, gauge is important. Now, I know that wasn't real scientific, but that's how I do it. It works for me. Now let's get to those measurements. I hope everyone downloaded the measurement chart. That measurement chart, if your measurements stay the same all the time, you can use that for all your garments. You just have to have it once. Now, if you're losing weight or gaining weight, you may need to retake your measurements. But use that as a tool for any garment that you may make. You know, on the hook, Jeannie with On the Hook crochet, she has a lot of patterns where she tells you about your measurements. It's a good idea to know what your measurements are, what size you are. And you can substitute those numbers in once you have that one piece of information. Now, I'm going to tell you the down and dirty way to measure for crochet, and that is just to take your tape measure from like if you're going to do under your arms, where your seam would be over to where the other seam is on both sides, and get a measurement. Or you can measure one of your favorite shirts that you like wearing from seam to seam to get your measurements. I don't do that because I have a lot of shirts. Each shirt is a different fit, and I like each shirt for a different reason. Like if I were to use this one, this is just, you know, sweatshirt. It's going to be a lot looser than what one of my other shirts would be. So you want to measure it, the shirt, if you're going to use the shirt method, for something that you want very comfy. You can use that measurement from seam to seam to get an idea of what you need. I have seen a lot of people, and J of Knit and Purl Jam. I'm with her crochet jam as well. She will tell you many times with crochet that she just crochets a chain that'll fit, you know, where she wants it across her hips, and then add a few more. And that's perfectly fine too. And there are reasons that you can do that with crochet that you can't do with knitting. One being because your knitting is on needles. The other being is most likely you're going to use a basic stitch that doesn't shrink up that chain when you're crocheting. So yeah, it's depending on the chain, on the stitch that you're going to use for both knit and crochet. But you need to make sure that whatever stitch you're going to use, you do have a gauge, an idea of what it's going to be. I don't like doing the side hip to side hip chain because sometimes it still comes out a little tighter than what I want. So that's why I use a gauge swatch. It just makes it simpler. Like I said, this is just going to be an adventure to see if we can make an item out of our own measurements that fits us and doesn't fit you, or you fit for yourself. Okay? And remember, I am not a professional. I just play one on YouTube. So let's have some fun with it and see what we get. And like I said, I think you'll be fairly surprised that it does work for you. Now I will tell you there's a measurement on that sheet that tells you to measure from your underarm to your waist, and then from your waist to the bottom of where you want your shirt to lie. I just go from up under my arm to where I want my shirt to end. And the reason being is because most of the time you add that together anyway. So why not just do one measurement? That is the only thing that I do a little differently. I do have someone else measure around my arm circumference here because it's awful hard to get that on yourself. And I have asked my husband, I've showed him where I wanted on my back the measurements to be from shoulder tip to shoulder tip. And he's pretty spot on because it's worked every time. So yeah, make sure you get your measurements. Make sure that you understand how many stitches per inch or per 2 inches, if you want to go that way, you get, so that you can determine what kind of ease you want. Ease is simply, I say, comfort. Because if you want a negative ease for it to be real tight forming, a lot of people will do a -1, -2. They really want things really tight. If that's what you want, go for it. That just means it's going to be skin tight on you. 0 is normally just a normal fit for people. I generally go 2 to 3 inches positive ease because I like things loose. I have gone as high as 4 inches, and on sweaters I usually go 6 inches because I just want to be able to wrap them around me and be cozy with a sweater. But this is just going to be a crochet top, and you get to decide if you want sleeves on it, what type of sleeves. So yeah, you can go sleeveless. You can just make it, you know, like a regular old T-top if you want. So yeah, that's it for that portion. I'm sorry it's not more detailed, but you know, sometimes we have to figure things out. There is going to be math involved, and it'll be minimum, but there is going to be math involved. So you do want something that's going to fit you the way that you want it to fit. So, you know, decide what you want. I like things a little looser just because I don't like tight fitting. I'm a fluffy girl. I don't care for it. So I like something that's a little easier to fit, you know, a little more easygoing, so that when I sit down, my stomach pooches out. It doesn't like pull the stitches. That's why I do that positive ease. Okay, that's it for now. Like I said, whatever size hook, needle you're going to use for your project, make sure you do a gauge swatch so that you know how many stitches per inch you're going to have. Trust me, you'll be more happy with it than if you didn't do that. Okay? Like I said, you can also do the dirty method for crochet. It does work. I've done that before, and it does work. And of course, with crochet, you can always add something on the edge to make, a panel that goes in between if it didn't work out. That's the lovely thing about crochet. And of course, you could do the same thing with knitting. It's just you're going to have to knit that panel, and that takes a little longer. So, measure, folks. Now, I am also going to do a shout out because I found a couple more channels, and a lot of these I found through Distinctive Crochet. I also found through, well, I did a search finding some, and one that Rel had talked about I'd never heard of. So I did go check her out, and she has a lot of yarn hauls, and that's EJ's daughter. And these are they're not in any particular order that I'm giving you these. But EJ's daughter does a lot of yarn hauls. You very rarely see her face. That's fine. She does them here and there. She's not I would say, a weekly thing. It's going to be here and there. The other one that I found is Lamplight Crochet. And she does a lot of teaching you how to do her patterns. She has about 420, maybe 50 people. But her name is Laura. Found her, and I found some of her patterns really cute and nice to do. So go check her out. And then there's It's Ezra. And Ezra just recently did a yarn haul. Even though we're quarantined, she went out shopping to get her some yarn. That is essential for some of us, just like fabric is for us. And I'm sure this is before stores had closed down. A lot of stores are doing curbside service where you call in or you order online and you go pick up. So they just bring it curbside. You call them, know you're there. Kind of like when you do the Walmart pickup. And so a lot of people are doing that, I've seen. And that works too. But check her out. She has a very bright personality, and I really enjoy watching her videos. This next lady is Angie of Lovin' Every Stitch by RubyBaby. Now, if you're on the group, you've noticed that I've posted a lot of these folks' links yesterday for a video. But Angie has something she calls the shacket. And this is where she has taken a shawl and turned it into a jacket. It's very neat, very interesting concept. So go check out Angie's channel. She's from New Jersey, and she has quite a few nice makes. She does beautiful work. Then there is Tandy B 123. Tandy B is in England, I believe. And she has some beautiful items too as well. She has quite a few videos up. And of course, like all of us, she's facing the quarantine and shopping with nothing on the shelves. Now, what I find interesting is I can get a lot of things in my area, but the one thing that is missing and seems to be missing everywhere, even online, is yeast. And I can understand that, because if you're going to be hunkered down, you might want to make some bread. So, I haven't been able to find yeast. I do have some yeast in my refrigerator, but I think it's past the date. I haven't looked at it, but I just want to get a couple of packets just in case. No use to be found. However, there is a recipe that is Navajo bread. It's like a naan bread or naan bread, N-A-A-N bread, where you just need baking powder, I think, and your flour and, some oils and things like that. And most of us have those. If I don't have cooking oil, I always have bacon grease that's in the refrigerator. And yeah, I'll use that in that place, and it'll be even tastier. So, those are the channels. Links are going to be down below. I will see you again Tuesday for a regular podcast or video. And we'll do some wad incarnation. There have been some interesting things I have found. So I'm looking forward to some of those stories. And of course, I will reveal my mini monster, my kindness monster. At that point, I have been working on her. I have determined she is a her and not a him. And I've been having fun decorating her up. I have a couple of things I still need to add, but yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, on the Facebook group, I have offered up a mini challenge, and it is to make this kindness monster. It is over at Ravelry. You can get it free over there. No, I didn't go to Ravelry to get it because it was also included in the Happily Hooked magazine. And I do get that online. So I already had the kindness monster. But I thought, since this is a freebie offered by some of the designers, why don't we just play it up and bling up our kindness monster? And I didn't announce the date that we would end that, but I'm thinking we'll end that probably around the 31st of March. For you to bling up, I have to go over and add a photo for everybody to put their photo in file, album. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing folks' kindness monster. And, yeah, that's all we're going to do for today. Everybody have a great day. Get your measurements, get your swatches made, figure out your what you're going to need to do your front and your back. Measurement, cast on. You could cast on if you want to go ahead and start, or you could wait until a couple of days later when we get it going. All right, everybody, have a great day, and I will see you again Tuesday. Bye.